Hello and welcome to another video from thefanpub.com. Today we're talking about Rookie Fliers. You excited for this?
Very much excited about this. I thought this was our best list last year, Al, and really excited to be back and talking about these players because I think last year we did very well with it.
We had Golladay on it, we had Breeder on it, we had Tariq Cohen on it, and these were all players going late in rookie drafts. So
very much, yeah.
We had the two Green Bay guys on it as well.
Yeah, we were. I think our list was excellent. I think if you have those players in your dynasty teams moving into this year, you're fairly excited about some of those players.
Yeah, exactly. Where you pick them up, and we're going to try and highlight you again. These are players that are outside the top 24, so the first two rounds in most drafts.
Yep.
Some of them are real deep sleepers. We're looking at late rookie flyers here. So, Sean, do you want to give me your number one player to look out for?
What, overall or just in general?
Outside the top 24, so your first flyer on your list.
Oh, my first flyer on my list, I'll in no particular order, I'll start with the one that I kind of like at this range, which is Bo Scarborough. I've picked him up in a few leagues. The reason I like him is not because I think he's going to supplant Ezekiel Elliott for the Dallas Cowboys job. Far from it. But the opportunity is just phenomenal if anything happens. And we are talking about Ezekiel Elliott. He has had some run-ins with the law, so that's the first key thing. All lies, of course. But, let's be honest, it's the best opportunity in fantasy for a player should anything happen. Now, the odds are that Ezekiel Elliott goes on and has an amazing year, which I suspect he will. I think he's a really good player for this year. But if anything happens, this is just, when you're talking about rookie shots, this is brilliant. I mean, it's just a brilliant shot.
And this guy's a big bruiser.
He's got everything you're looking for. He's exactly the right fit for their team. And if anything was to happen, would it be unrealistic to think, even if he got half a season, can he get 10 touchdowns? Yes. Could he get 1,000 yards in 10 games, 8 games? Yes, he could. So everything.
Is a name to
it's literally, the floor he's literally on the floor because there's no points really. But if anything happens, it's through the roof. And everybody will want.
And he's going pick 47, so you're talking fourth round.
I love him at that range. I love that range for a player like that. I mean, it's a shot to nothing, and who knows.
Okay, the first one on my list. Now, this guy is a bit of a bad boy.
Yep.
Antonio Callaway. He was drafted by the Browns, who've had their trouble players in the past. And what better player to mentor him than Josh Gordon?
Well, yeah, you're right.
I mean,
we talked a bit about this.
There's a more reliable player in the NFL than Josh Gordon.
No, there's not.
Hopefully, Josh Gordon's turned the corner. Callaway could be the best wide receiver in this class, and emphasis on could. I mean, he could be that good. He's fallen obviously because of his troubles, maybe a bit because of his landing spot of the Browns, but they're an improving team. So Antonio Callaway is definitely somebody to watch out on your boards. I'll let you know exactly where he's going.
What do you think are his biggest positives? Why do you have him high?
He's got everything. He's got he's got separation. He's got speed. He's got height. He's just a good player. He's got. They said he was probably one of those natural talented players you'll have come. He's at 28, so he's not too far below the top 2 rounds, but definitely one to keep an eye on.
I like that a lot. I think that's a really interesting pick. He's certainly a player that we've talked about a bit in this off season. Well, before everything really gets going, and I do like your thinking. This is the one that I want to talk about next because. This is my number 2. No particular order. I like Josh Allen, the quarterback. Now, he's outside those top 2 rounds, and I think he's absolute value. Now,
he's 34 overall. So
here's what I'm going to say about him. Right,
so round.
The more I watch him, the more I've watched the tape, I'm reading verbatim some notes here. I'm convinced that this kid will walk into the NFL with more ceiling than any other passer in the 2018 rookie class. Obviously, the landing spot determines everything. I think the landing spot was perfect because I think where he is right now is spot on. It'd be foolish to think this guy's going to come in out the gate and do well year one. But I will say this. Let me just put the bold prediction out there now. He'll be a top 4 quarterback by 2019. Josh Allen.
That is very bold.
So there we go.
What makes you that? I know everyone knows he's got an arm. But not the accuracy, perhaps.
Well, I think that's really misunderstood.
Because he throws deep a lot.
You see, I'll go deeper, right? So let's look at it differently, right? So regardless of the landing spot, again, reading it pretty much verbatim, this is just one of those players where the talent will continue to keep rising. Obviously, where he lands will be important, but we now know where that is. That's Buffalo. The kid has a huge arm, and I mean absolutely huge. Probably the biggest I've seen in the NFL for a very, very long time. I mean, to give you an idea of that, it's Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre arm strength plus. It's better than any of them I've ever seen. I mean, it is unbelievable. This is a kid who can sit at the 50-yard line on his back and throw a 50-yard ball.
Has he got the accuracy?
Yes, I believe he has. I think what's been missed is the fact that when there's been issues with accuracy, you have to remember the kind of situations he's been in game tape. I think if you look more carefully at it, and I like studying quarterbacks, and I've got a good reputation for this now, I think things have been missed. And I think this is the perfect landing spot. So I'm absolutely convinced he's going to do something. And when you watch footage of him throwing 80-yard bombs for fun,
I know, it's impressive, isn't it?
on pro days, right, and they are fun. It was just messing about, just lobbing them around like it was going out of fashion. And he wasn't even breaking a sweat.
You can't even teach that. You can't teach power like
this
that.
This is elite skill set stuff. Now the other thing is when we talk about the accuracy, I could get it if we were watching him when we were watching the pro day, and you look at that and you know obviously he's got his favourite wide receiver out there and they're running what I call the three throw drill or running the tree. He was exceptional. And here's his other thing, right? He's got the most amazing foot placement and pocket presence I've seen of any of the top 5 quarterbacks. So again, what I mean by that is when you watch him move around in the pocket, because you're not talking about speed, what we're looking at is awareness, right? You can't teach it. Can he feel the pressure? Yes. Can he move out of trouble? Yeah. Does he buy himself a yard? Absolutely. It's like watching an effortless running back. You don't want him to run. He never does. But what he does is he moves around the pocket. He feels the pressure. Can't teach it. It's exceptional. It's the best in the class by a long way. Okay. He'll need a year or two. But I'm predicting by 2019 he's going to skyrocket and he will be unbelievable. By the end of 2019, I really do believe that this kid will be somebody everybody goes, he is one of those premier elite quarterbacks. And there is a gulf and there's going to be a gap for these guys.
I mean, he's a guy that has to throw deep more than most. So, your accuracy percentage is your completion percentage is going to fall, isn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe it's a bit of a false stat anyway.
Very much. I mean, he was asked to do a lot for his college.
Like
he did everything.
You can't treat throw power.
Everybody said the same about Brady accuracy, right? And I think we'll all agree that was a mistake, right? I'm not saying this guy is Brady. He's not. He's different, entirely different. But what you have here is a very elite guy who, if you give him a burner, is going to rip this league apart. If Randy Moss was playing with this kid, we'd be shouting about him year one. That's how good he is. Because Randy Moss could get deep and beat every coverage going. You'd have to put prevent every time to stop it.
Have Buffalo got that guy?
No, but they've got the weather. And with a guy with this arm strength, it's fantastic. It's unbelievable. It makes it so difficult. So that's why it's a great fit. So I'm very excited to put him in that list. And that is why, when he fell in a Dynasty League and I was able to snap him up round 2, it might have shocked a few people. Thinking, why would you want him there? What's the point of it? It just was the best player that I could see on the list at that time on my board. So I took him.
Okay. My second player is called Kiki Kuti.
Like it, yeah.
He is a player that is there's a bit of a buzz around him at the moment. Training camp, he has got speed to burn. They are calling him, the new Tyreek Hill. I mean, Tyreek Hill's not that old, but
no,
that blazing speed. He's 21 years old, and that was in January. So he's a young lad. He's got all the speed. He's got the raw talent. He's landed at Houston. They picked him in the 4th round.
Yeah, that's high.
And
yeah.
Deshaun Watson,
Houston know their players.
Yeah.
They've done.
Houston haven't got a problem because Deshaun Watson has got the arm strength to utilise his speed. He's a guy.
I really like that pick. That's a really clever pick.
So Kiki Kuti, a man to watch out for.
Good dynasty pick. You think maybe in a year or two? You think in a year or two he could fly up the boards? I think you may be right.
I think he will play this year a little bit from what I've been reading.
It would make sense as the third wide receiver to me, and I think you might be right. And in high octane offenses, we often say this. I'll be saying this a lot this year. You do look at the number 3 guy to eventually break out into the 2 role, and we know how good Deshaun Watson was. He was changing fantasy. To be honest,
he's number 31 overall, so he's not a high price to pay.
That's a very good value.
If you're picking the next Tyreek Hill, I'm not saying he is, but
you're looking for shots, and it's a good shot. I like that, Al. It's really good.
Okay, now to your.
Well, I think I'll get the easy one out of the way first. One that's a fairly straightforward, and a number of people have him a lot higher actually. But I'm just going to use the ADP as it stands, which is Nyheim Hines. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of him, but opportunity trumps everything, and Indianapolis are desperate for running backs. Obviously, this is a small guy. But he plays with heart, plays with a lot of passion. He will get used in the third down role. And let's be honest, Andrew Luck, if he should come back, and that is a big if, we don't know at this moment in time what's going to happen here. But let's say he does. Let's just argue that he is back in time to play and can play. This is a good guy to have on third downs. It's excellent. He could come out of the gate and in a PPR league and be relevant. And that's rare for a rookie who's this low down on a draft board.
He's another guy that's been getting buzz.
But we've seen him go a lot higher in some leagues, surprisingly higher than the ADP.
He went something like 14.
Which is surprising, but I know we're just using
that's
ADP.
A little high, but
that's too high for my blood. But
27's too low.
27's too low. Somewhere in the middle is probably fair, but I think I'm just using ADP to my advantage here. It's a good pick. It's cheap, and it's definitely going to have some relevance year one.
Especially in 4-point PPR.
I don't care who's at quarterback. This guy will get some work.
4-point PPR, he's
definitely going to get some work. Yeah, definitely.
He's 5'8".
He's a nice, easy one to talk about. I won't spend too much on him, but I do like him.
Okay, my third one is also from the Colts, and that's Dion Kane.
I like that.
Very promising wide receiver. I've been reading the reports, and they're already working him into red zone drills at Indianapolis. So, if Luck is fit, and you've got someone who's good, because T.Y. Hilton's not a red zone threat. He's a deep threat. He's a quick threat. He's a great player. Not that many touchdowns, a lot of yards.
Yeah.
If this guy is a red zone threat, then he's 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
If Luck's there, he's got the right quarterback.
Sky's the limit.
He could be a monster, and
I mean, considering they may be throwing all day.
He's 37 overall, so if you're in a 12-team league, that's the fourth round.
That's really good value.
And Mark, who's a very good judge in our thing, he's been picking him everywhere.
Yeah. Well, that says a lot actually about it. Yeah,
it does. He watches a lot of college football.
Yeah, it does say a lot. Yeah, agreed. I like that. That's a good. This could be a very good list actually. I like what you're doing there. That's good.
Okay, let's go on to your fourth.
Well, my fourth guy again is a nice, easy one to talk about. I really like this guy. He's getting a lot of training camp buzz as well, which is really good to see. And I think his ADP is going to climb accordingly, but he is quite comfortably outside the top 2 rounds. Alan Lazard. I really like this guy.
He's a monster, isn't he?
Well, he's massive. Let me tell you a bit about him. I'm going to give his strengths, right? Outstanding size with frame. Okay, these are my notes again on it. Very difficult for a quarterback to miss. I mean, it's the only words I'm going to use.
Well,
when you've got a guy, he's massive.
Mind you, if anyone can miss it,
But not only that, but he's extremely smart and very physical. Okay, so that's the other things I like about him. He definitely plays to his size when between the tackles because he can definitely handle himself at the line. So he can really bump off players and get space. A tough guy, doesn't mind work in the middle of the field, right? Got the right work ethic for it. Great hands, plucks the ball in traffic really effortlessly. These are the kind of commodities you're looking for when you're talking about rookies. He reminds me an awful lot of last year's Kenny Galladay, my favourite wide receiver for last year. This is another one of these guys. Able to dig out the low throws. So for a big man to reach down, he's got those skills, which is good. Decent hand fighter. So when he's getting off the line of scrimmage, he's pretty good. He's not the best, but I will say, looking at the mechanics, I think it's really cool. And it definitely is they'll work on that in the NFL and improve it. He uses his elbows, right? So I'm just going to explain this. Shoulder and hips. And hands to shield defenders from the catch points. What I mean by that is basically he's able to extend the arms out. He uses that exceptionally well because of his huge size. He's almost building a yard because of that. And when he's moving, his hips is so wide. It's so difficult. He can move his body and he's got... How do you get a hand over this kid?
Well, he's a big body receiver, isn't he?
So all of that is there. The final bit is he shows ability to latch and finish as a run blocker on the perimeter. This is really important, right? So when you're looking at a player that can break into a team, maybe as a starting third, so he starts as a third receiver, I think he's got all the tools to make the 53. I think he's got all the tools to be relevant year one. Not massively, but Dynasty year 2,
with him.
year 3.
And this guy is...
So that's why I like him.
This guy is deep. He's 58.
That's why I've picked him.
He's deep on the depth chart as well.
Yeah.
So he's got a few to get past. But
he has. Yeah.
He could be a red zone beast, couldn't he?
Opportunities, cream rises, and I think he's got an opportunity to shine.
If you want to take a shot to nothing...
This is Dynasty, not year 1. Year 2, maybe 3, but he will have an opportunity. He will make. It's too big, too talented not to make a 53
round. End of fourth, fifth round.
Too unusual, freaky athlete not to make a team.
My next player is actually around that range as well. Number 60. He's called Richie James. We're both a fan, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
He's a little guy, but he plays bigger. And he's really electric. If you go and watch Richie James's college tape, I think his season finished early because of injury, and he declared for the draft, and he dropped accordingly. But a bit like Matt Breeder, who was also, injured during college, San Francisco picked him up as an undrafted free agent, and he tore up rookie camp. And this is what Richie James has done. And bear in mind, they had Dante Pettis, who they drafted a lot higher.
Yeah.
The man that all the buzz was about, that they like a lot, is Richie James. Again, he's deep on their roster. He's going to be borderline on the 53, but
yep.
They're making the right sort of noises. It's like Breeder. Breeder came in and he was a number 2 running back there. And so someone you're drafting that he wasn't even in many of the lists. He was on ours last year.
I like that. Yeah,
he's a clear number 2 Breeder now, and I think Richie James is a sort of player.
Yeah, we both like this guy.
Yeah.
He would have easily made my 5, but
he's a real fighter. You go and watch his highlights on YouTube, Richie James. Honestly,
I think we've all drafted him already in Dynasty, haven't we? All of us have taken a punt on this guy.
It's eye catching, and he's number 60 overall, so 5th round.
Fabulous value. Fabulous value. Great opportunity.
He may be something, he may be nothing, but
that's what you want within the 5th round, isn't it? You want a shot to something, and I think he offers that.
Okay, last player for each of us.
Right, my final player is the player that has caused the most amount of interest, I think, in where I've taken him. People have gone, who is this kid? Yeah, Philip Lindsay, right? So this is a guy who doesn't even get drafted. So there's an opportunity here to do something clever. You can have your 5 rookie rounds in drafting, have your 5 picks, and then on the first waiver opportunity, pick him up before the season starts. However, I don't think that's what's going to happen because...
You look at a really deep league.
This is deep. Right, this is a pick that a lot of people don't even draft him. Right, here's why.
A lot of people haven't heard of him.
Right, here's why. I'm going to read it out. Right, here's. I'm using NFL.com for this, but I'm then going to add something on top. Okay, so I'm just going to read this. This is why it's highlightingly interesting. So first off, and it's not a good note to start on, but it's how it is. Lindsay's high school career ended on a very low note because he had an ACL tear and missed most of his entire senior season. Despite that, though, he still rushed for 4,587 yards rushing. I just want to remind you of that. Never been heard of. 4,587 yards. 44 touchdowns in that career. He was redshirted in 2013, but was healthy enough to be the Offensive Scout Player of the Year. In 12 games as a freshman reserve back, Lindsay was an all-round threat with the ball in his hand. 79 rushing attempts, 391 rushing yards, 14 catches for 118 receiving yards, 36 kick returns for 849 yards. The diminutive small guy, because he's very small, but tough to tackle Lindsay, got his chance to start in 2015, beginning 6 of 13 games played and leading the Buffaloes with 653 yards on 140 carries, which included 6 touchdowns. He also contributed as a receiver, catching 26 passes for 211 yards and 1 score, but had fewer attempts as a kicker because obviously he was now a player, so he only had 7, but was for 154 yards. Lindsay became the main man in Colorado's offense in 2016, taking advantage of his speed, vision and balance to garner the second-team All-Pro Pac-12 honours. 1,252 yards, 16 touchdown rushing on 244 carries for a small man, 53 receptions for 493 yards. Pac-12 coaches gave him honourable mentions in 2017, despite increasing his rushing yardage to 1,474 on 301 carries and 14 times on the ground. He caught 23 passes for 247 yards and a touchdown and never gets talked about because he tore his ACL and because he's known as the Tasmanian Devil because he's so small. His issue...
What team did he get drafted?
Well, tell us. Go for it. Who?
Was it the... I can't remember.
Go for it. Go for it. Go on.
Was it the Broncos?
Yeah.
So the Broncos... I mean, there is a route to their backfield.
Right, so I just want to sort of put this out there, right? So think of this, right? So why am I mentioning him? Now, I've already talked about in a previous video, we talked about the guy who's got all the chance to start. Royce Freeman, right? Now, that's logical. It makes sense. This is a guy, though, who probably will make the 53-man roster. And here's why. Because this guy, if you ever watch the tape, I want you to go and look at the tape on this kid, and you tell me if this isn't the player who's the smallest player you've ever seen, with the biggest heart in the NFL, who runs between tackles like you've never seen a small guy do. And no matter how hard they hit him, he keeps getting up. He's the toughest guy, and he's been through a lot. Injuries will not faze him. He will come bouncing back. As they've said already, he's miles ahead of the recovery, miles ahead, because he's that kind of guy. He works so hard to get back. And this is why he could be good. If anything happens between any of these running backs, and you had to put a pin in a player 5th round or beyond, who might just come out of nowhere and land the big bucks, Philip Lindsay. That's who I put my money on.
If nothing else,
that's why I'm excited
and check
about
out his picture. If you've seen Kaepernick with the big hair,
yeah,
this is Philip Lindsay. Go and check him out.
I know it's a shot to nothing.
The deepest of deep,
it's the deepest of deep shots, and I appreciate it probably will come to nothing. But you know what? You'd rather have a shot like this where there is a credential behind the player. This is a player that
he's got some stats.
There's stats to back him up. He may be small, but he's mighty, and he has the heart of a lion. And I really believe he will find a way to play in the NFL. It may only be as a kick returner, punt returner, or something along those lines in the end. But in some leagues, even that has value.
Let's just put this another way. There's 69 players on the Fantasy Pros rookie list, and he isn't one of them.
I'm not surprised.
So that's how deep he is.
Yeah.
A lot of people, if you draft him, a lot of people wouldn't have heard him.
I picked him up.
Don't draft him high.
No, look, in all fairness, this is what I would do. If you, like us, we play in a number of leagues. I'm not going to put him on every team. Of course I'm not. Even in a rookie shot, I'm going to take shots everywhere, because that's the idea of rookies. You take a few shots. But I've certainly loaded him onto a couple of teams. I'm prepared to hold him and see what happens, because when I'm picking my 5th round player, this is the kind of person I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. I hope that makes sense.
Certainly does. Right, my last player is a tight end, fullback, running back.
Like it.
Wide receiver.
You're Swiss Army knife.
He does it all.
Yeah.
His name's Jalen Samuels. Drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
We like this pick.
He does everything, and if he's designated as a tight end and he comes to something, then he could be something. He's 21 again, so really, really young. So he's got time to develop. But let me just have a look at his college stats, because I seem to remember they're pretty good. So receiving, he had 19 career touchdowns, 1,851 yards. Pretty good. Rushing, he had over 1,000 yards rushing and 28 touchdowns.
He does sound very exciting, this guy.
In his last season at North Carolina State, he scored 4 rushing touchdowns, 593 yards. This is a guy who could play tight end.
It's amazing. I mean, he reminds me. He sounds an awful lot.
He got 16 total touchdowns.
Do you know that the last Swiss Army knife player, true Swiss Army knife player, also played for the Pittsburgh Steelers? That was Cordell Stewart. So, and that was true. If he's anything like that, then you really have got something special. And do you know what? Cordell Stewart got in the team because of the multiple abilities. So, if you don't make it in one area because you're versatile in another, that often means you crack the team, because everything has a value. Whether it's holding a ball on a punt, whether it's a kickoff, whatever it is, you have to have those skills. And it sounds like this is the kind of guy who can learn. Must be a quick learner.
One of the good things, and one of the things that I've read and been told by Gordon, actually, he's a really good judge as well, that he's got really good hands. So he's got hands, he's got speed, he's got size. He's going to be a matchup nightmare.
Yeah.
He's not going high. Let me just tell you where he's going.
He must
be.
You
have to take him on. Because we're giving you late flyers. It could be anything.
Yeah, well, that's what you want.
46.
That's what you want, isn't it? That's exactly what you want. That's a good pick. That. Yeah.
Round 3, pick 10.
Yeah.
If he's still there.
You're laughing. That's a really good pick. I like that, Al. That's an excellent last round pick.
The fact that he can do it, he can run, catch.
Yeah, I think if you were being honest, if you're putting pins in players that can make the 53 and then be fantasy relevant, he sounds like the kind of player that could.
Well, I know they're already mixing him into things, and they're
the kind of team that will mix you in if you've got the skills.
You've got to listen to what's going on in the camps, because if the team like a player, then he could get a roster spot A, and B, he could get a role. That's what we like about Richie James. This is what we're telling you about these players.
Not a lot to beat out at tight end, really. I mean, I like Vance McDonald. We do speak highly of him, but
he's a different thing to Vance.
Yeah, but he's got the kind of opportunity. You often use 2 tight end sets, so there'd be an opportunity in there for him.
They got Jesse James as well.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to just try and create, mismatches with him. So
definitely, yeah, and that would make sense.
He's definitely somebody.
I could see him cracking the 53, and I can see him doing something year 1, and then maybe being more relevant as we move in, like a lot of these players, into the next year, which is great. That's a really nice one.
Yeah, so
good pick.
6 foot tall, big, fast. I mean, what more do you want from a rookie flyer?
Fabulous.
Okay,
great list.
Well, if you're still here, again, thank you very much for your support, for your time. hopefully we've given you somebody that you can target.
New players to consider that may not be being talked about by other podcasters. I think that's really important.
Yeah, anyone can give you Saquon Barkley. You know that yourself. You don't need that. I mean, he's great. We're not going to say he isn't. But it's finding those little gems low down, and even if they can contribute a little bit to your team and then grow in a role and turn into something.
Like anything in Dynasty, player that you may not use them, but they turn into something, can be used for something else. So it could buy you something better or move into a better spot.
I mean, like we always say, it's opportunity. If you got a man that can do lots of different things, then they've got a chance of A, making a roster, and then B, becoming something.
Interesting list. Looking forward to seeing how they play out.
Okay.
Going to be good to look back.
As ever, subscribe, like, share,
and we continue to support the channel.
And football is getting closer, so thanks very much for watching.
Thank you.